Right, let's get this show on the road. Hello and welcome to another week of Introduction to Urban and Regional Planning. This week we'll explore the, I'll give you an overview of the scope and the scope of urban and regional planning, which includes regional, urban, and coastal planning. And we'll explore the basic concepts and definitions of regional area, urban area, coastal area, and of course, um, we'll dive a bit deeper into what spatial planning as an activity or planning as a verb is, and then I'll show you. I'll show you some products, some of the some planning products, and in the end, or before we end the session, um, we'll talk about the terms of reference to your assignment, which I distributed to you yesterday. Right. Don't forget to mark your attendance for today. If you happen to have technical difficulties whatsoever, the QR code will pop up every now and then throughout the session, so you have more than one attempt. Okay, so as I as I mentioned, we'll be exploring space. We'll touch on space and the various scales and try to get a grasp on this ambiguous activity known as planning. Now, ambiguous, you say? Well, stay tuned for the reveal. So, space. Unfortunately, the kind of space we discuss and we're dealing with here has nothing to do with the Starship Enterprise, nor does it have anything to do with buzzing lightsabers. Space here refers to a container of activities that includes terrestrial space, sea space, or the ocean, um, and airspace, of course. Also including space in the Earth or below the surface of below the terrestrial surface, um, and all of these various different spaces, all of these various different types of spaces as a unitary territory, a place where humans and other living things go about with their activities or conduct their activities and ensure their survival. Um, that definition I took from the foundation of the foundational law number 26 2007, or Undang-Undang 26 tahun 2007 tentang penataan ruang. Um, however, the however law number 26 does not does not further detail the definitions, or does not give you any further definitions of what terrestrial space is, sea space is, and what airspace is. Those three definitions I took from the previous foundational law on spatial planning, which is number 24, which is number 24, issued in 1992. Now, this particular law, 2492, is no longer valid. However, although it is no longer valid, it is no longer in effect, we can still use its definitions of terrestrial, ocean, and airspace. So it defines terrestrial space as any space located above and below the surface of the land, below terrestrial surface, including surfaces of inland water bodies and the lowest sea line. Um, Ocean space is any space located above and below sea level, starting from the seaside um, of the lowest sea line, including the seabed and the earth below it. Wherever the Republic of Indonesia has jurisdictional rights, or they can, wherever the Republic of Indonesia can exercise their jurisdictional rights. Airspace is a space located and above um, is located above the land and above the land and or ocean space around the territory of the country and attached, which is basically attached to wherever our country is, also where our country has jurisdictional rights. Um, I should mention, however, that airspace is not the same as outer space. So there are no constitutions that explicitly states this, but um, we have Indonesian airspace, but then up to a certain altitude, we lose our authority as it then crosses over to the outer space territory. I guess that's the same. Sorry, I guess that's the same for all other countries. So that's basically what space is. Simply put, it is a container of activities, but it is located in different places. It can be on land, it can be offshore, or it can be somewhere up there in the clouds. So the first there are three different scales of space, so to say. We have the region or regional area. There's also the urban area, and then we have the coastal area. By definition, a region is a space that is a geographical unit and all related elements whose boundaries and systems are determined based on administrative and or functional aspects. Um, the in our language, the term region translates more or less into wilayah, and the term wilayah can often be referred to as a rural area. However, regions can also mean a group of interdependent cities and or regencies, kabupaten, that work together, that collaborate to be more competitive globally, or well, to be more competitive regionally, nationally, or even globally. Now, before we transition into the urban area, um, there is a sort of uh, dichotomy of urban and rural environments. Now, urban and rural environments are fundamentally different, precisely because of their different spatiality. The city is defined, or some people define the city as a complex, multifaceted social organization. For some people, what distinguishes cities from the countryside is their size and population density. Yet, definitions based on size can be a bit problematic, given that some settlements of the same size may be designated as small towns in some nations, but large villages in other nations. So if you talk about, oh, a city should be this size and so on, no. Um, for example, let's say the city that I studied in, um, the city that I studied and lived in Germany. It was only it was only 3 by 4 kilometers in size. So 12 square kilometers more or less. Um, and in and in our country, a 12 square kilometer area would you would probably call that a small town or a village, but there it classifies as a city. So definitions based on size can be problematic. Um, and it is certainly the case that some settlements feel like cities, while other, although more populous, although more a much more crowded area, um, more popular settlements may not feel like cities at all. Hence, some people propose that the questions of population density or population het- heterogeneity may be more crucial in definitions of a city. Other people argue that cities are defined by the ways of life or cultures, um, or those characteristics of cities that distinguish them from rural spaces, or that it's the way nature is excluded from cities that marks them off as being different from the countryside. It is it is thus possible to make distinctions between the urban and rural environment on several different criteria, and one should not forget, and you shouldn't forget that the country and the city are also morphologically very different. They take on different shapes. In the sense that they're characterized by different built forms, they're characterized by different layouts, and so on. Um, However, there are also several commentators who suggest that the distinction between urban and rural spaces nowadays becoming more and more irrelevant, or at least less relevant, to the extent that the concept of the urban and the rural is no longer useful in making sense of societies characterized by high levels of geographic and social mobility. Maybe 30, 40 years ago, Surabaya and Sidoarjo. Surabaya is a city. Sidoarjo may be considered as a village, as a rural area. However, as time progresses, the distinctions between Surabaya and Sidoarjo are becoming less and less apparent, in that Sidoarjo is becoming more and more urbanized, and it it changes morphologically. It also changes in size. And nowadays, I think in the next few years, in a decade or so, the two regions will basically merge into one and become this agglomeration of two, maybe more cities or cities or cities or regencies. Now, I mentioned that there are several different definitions. There are that different people have different ideas, or cities have frequently been described differently by different people. Um, in turn, this distinctive nature of cities is deemed to require the development of specific ideas to describe and explain them. Now, um, as I mentioned, different people interpret or define cities differently. Sociologists may look at the different cultures and the different lifestyles of a city and thus have their definition. Urban planners, structural planners may also have a different idea of what a city is. Well, as I mentioned, villages and cities have different morphological characters and so on. Architects also have different ideas of a city. Uh, economists analyze and try to understand the rural and the urban areas differently. they look at the activities, they look at activities, volume of produce maybe, and so on and so on. Urbanists, those who study urbanism, also have different definitions and have different ideas. Geographers, of course, have different ideas, and maybe there are many other categories that I haven't mentioned here, many other categories of people. But the idea is that all of these different thoughts, all of these different distinctions, or all of these different, sorry, not distinctions, all of these different definitions, all of this, all contribute, all contribute to an idea or a term that is known as collectively as urban. You might be thinking, oh, theory, and you might have a notion of theory as a series of big, abstract, and grand ideas, which uh, is a bit um, can be a bit over the top, but um, their ideas, their definitions help us make sense of the detailed complexity of everyday life. And but to make everything more simple, let's just consider urban theory as a set of explanations and laws which explain how cities are formed, how they function, and how they change over time. However, if all of these different definitions then uh, is a bit challenging for all these different definitions can be a bit challenging for us, and so we need sorry, and so we need a solid, simple definition of what an urban area is. Now, I'm going to roll back and come back to our foundational law. And in that law, we're presented with these three definitions of urban areas. All right. The first idea or the first definition of an urban area looks at the different sort of main activities that take place as its main production activities. Um, Law number 26 state that an urban area is an area that relies on non-agricultural activities as its main source of production, as its main production activities. Um, and within that area, it contains several different spatial arrangements for several different purposes or several different functions. Within an urban area, there there are urban settlements and concentrations of and distribution of government services, social services, and other economic activities. That is what an urban area is, or basically that is what a city is according to our foundational law. A metropolitan area is an a metropolitan area is an urban area consisting of a standalone urban area or a core urban area with several functional urban areas around this core urban area, and they are interconnected, usually with an integrated regional infrastructure. Sorry, with an integrated regional infrastructure network system. And the second definition, or the metropolitan area definition, also takes in the idea of a number of population. It has to have at least 1 million people living in that area. The third definition or the third type is a megapolitan area, and a megapolitan area is basically or more metropolitan areas that have a functional relationship and form a system. Hang on a minute. Sorry about that. A little technical glitch. Where were we? Urban areas. And now we move on to coastal areas or wilayah pesisir. Coastal areas are basically transitional areas between terrestrial and marine ecosystems that are affected by changes inland and from the sea. Um, and it is because of this transitional this transition this it is because of this transitional property that coastal areas require a very specific or a special approach. For your information, our department has a special focus towards coastal planning and development. In fact, ITS Institut Teknologi 10 November have a maritime outlook, and I guess that makes sense because Surabaya is a coastal and a port city, and yeah. But for me personally, I'm not. I don't have a specific interest in I don't have a specific interest in coastal planning or coastal development. I'm more of a terrestrial person myself. I prefer the mountains to the beaches. Just out of just out of curiosity, um, who here prefers the beaches to the mountains? Just a quick poll. Do you prefer the beaches or the mountains? Oh, right. Okay. 13. Well, it's almost it's almost evenly matched. We have 54% beaches and 46% mountains. Um, that's awesome. At least at least your maritime interest and your coastal inclinations should be well served throughout your academic career in in the department. Oh, I should remind you the for coastal areas we do have a different set of we do have a different set of laws and regulations that govern their planning and development. That's law number 27 2007. So 26 is for spatial planning. 27 is about the management of the coastal areas and small islands. They also have it details what a coastal area is. That's where I got this definition. It also further details and provides definitions of what small islands is and the criteria of a small island. So as you progress throughout the next few semesters, you will I think you will understand more about coastal area planning, coastal area development, and so on, because there are I think one or two or three studios, two or three courses that have a specific focus in coastal planning. And as for the small islands, management and planning, I think there is a supplementary course that you can take as well towards the end of your studies. I'm going to close the poll here. Most of you prefer the beaches. Um, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. There you go. Okay, now that we've concluded our journey in exploring the different types of space, the different scopes, the different scales, the next few slides, or the next this next section may be a bit more theoretical, a bit more philosophical. I'll try to make it. I'll try to get it down as close as possible, down to earth as close as possible. So let's try to tackle this, as I mentioned earlier, this ambiguous activity called spatial planning. Um, let's let's have a look at the planning side of things. Now, planning is it is an extremely ambiguous and difficult word to define. Uh, Planners of all walks of life, of all kinds, think that they know what it means, or planning means this. Usually, when you ask what planning is, a planner would refer to planning as the work that they do. Um, However, the the difficulty in that definition is that planners do all sorts of different things, and so they mean different things by the word. Planning seems to be all things to all people. Let's start by defining what exactly it is that we're discussing. If you open the dictionary and look up the noun plan and the verb to plan, you'll find several different things or several different meanings. In fact, plan as a noun, the noun plan, can either mean a physical representation of something, for instance, a drawing or a map. A drawing, a map can also be known as a plan, um, or a plan can also mean a method of doing something or an orderly arrangement of parts of an objective. So let me give you an example. When we talk about a street plan, say street plan of Manado, street plan of Padang, street plan of Denpasar, we mean an entirely different thing from when we talk about our plan to visit Manado, Padang, or Denpasar next year. Um, so there's plan as a noun. It has two different meanings at least. But there is one definition that combines the others and sort of blurs the distinction. And as we talk about a plan for a new building, for example, this is the plan for a new building is simultaneously a physical design of that building as it is intended to be built, and it serves as a guideline um, to realizing our intention to build it. So I plan to build a house, for example. When I say I plan to build a house, then the house has its plans, and that plan details how we go about in realizing the house, or in realizing my intention to build a house. And it's here that this real ambiguity arises. This is why I said planning is an ambiguous thing. The verb to plan and the nouns planning and planner that are derived from it have, in fact, only the second general group of meanings. They don't refer to the art of drawing up a physical plan or design on paper. They can mean either to arrange the parts of, or to realize the achievement of, or more vaguely, to intend, the intention to. The most common meaning of planning involves both the first two of these elements. Planning is concerned with deliberately achieving some objective, and it proceeds by assembling actions into some orderly sequence. One dictionary definition, in fact, um, refers to what planning does. Um, the other dictionaries refer to how planning does it. So, this is what I mean by this ambiguous activities, this ambiguous word, this ambiguous verb. So planning can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Um, there are 15 of us in this class right now, and I bet that there are at least 15 different ideas of what planning should be or what planning is. I'm gonna need a hit of caffeine before we move on. All right. However, of all these complexities, our let's return to our foundational law, or our regulatory foundation, for a more simplified and a more holistic definition. Um, our regulatory foundation for spatial planning simply defines spatial planning as a process for determining the structure of space and spatial patterns, that includes the preparation and establishment and the publishing of spatial plans. Um, One thing's for sure, um, our species, we humans plan. Our species plans. That's who we humans are. We're plan makers. Um, we rely on our knowledge. We rely on our experience. We rely on our instincts, and sometimes we rely on that gut reaction to guide our decisions. Plans require context and vision to provide the connection between what we know now and what we want to do. Um, so, with that in mind, an understanding of an area, an understanding of this is talking about within the scope of urban and regional planning, an understanding of the area, an understanding of the region should precede whatever intervention it is that we would then introduce. Um, Furthermore, I believe that plans work best when they're flexible and capable of adjusting to changing circumstances and dealing with new information. Um, from nature, we know that it is neither always the strongest of species that survive, nor the most intelligent. Rather, it is the species that is most adaptable to change. And thankfully, we humans are an adaptive species. We're highly adaptive. We can heat our homes in the winter, cool them in the summer. We can extend light deep into the night, and we can transmit messages nowadays across vast spaces. So all of that we do to ensure our continuity, our survival, and planning is among our most powerful tools for adaptation. Um, Simply put, planning is pretty much thinking ahead. Um, but when we talk about regional planning, urban planning, spatial planning, and then we can't separate these terms from what inhabits them, people, communities. So community and regional planning then involves the thinking ahead and formally envisioning the future for ourselves and others. Now, these two scales, ourselves and others, local, regional, suggest that planners actually deal with close knit groups and larger populations. They deal with a lot of things. Planners deal with a lot of things. Um, Planners also have to take into consideration environmental and social concerns, um, at both scales, both the close-knit and larger populations, both the local and regional scale, and so on. Um, so, for better or worse, we need to produce better plans. We need to produce better plans for our communities. We need to produce better plans for our cities and towns and regions. Um, Improved plans, I believe, can lead to healthier, safer, more beautiful places for us and other species to live. We can also plan for places that are both more just, it is more just, more transparent, more fair, and more equal and more profitable at the same time. Plans can help us not only to sustain what we value, but also to transcend sustainably by creating truly regenerative communities. That is, um, places with the capacity to restore, renew, and revitalize their own source of energy and materials. Planners can do that, or they can at least think of that. Um, Coming up, I'm gonna share. Something very personal, deeply personal, or deeply personal experience with you guys. At the beginning of my journey studying urbanism, I had I had difficulties understanding urban planning. This may be because I have a background in architectural design, and prior to studying urbanism, I had some professional experience practicing architectural design. Um, it was only after I started my career here at the Department of Urban and Regional Planning that I can fully understand and distinguish between planning and designing. Now, the table you see before you illustrates the distinction between the two activities, planning and designing. As I should say, planning versus designing, and in several different aspects that they share. Both activities, both planners and designers, they deal with project owners. Um, in every planning or every design project, there are persons in charge. There are both planners and designers produce final documents or design documents. I Yeah, as a designer, I produced detailed documents on um, detailed construction documents, detailed interior details documents, and so on. Um, but then those documents also have different characters, have different natures. Sorry. Both activities have different time frames, have different orientations and focus, of course. Um, in designing or in the design activity, the people involved in the contract very are pretty clear cut. You're the project owner, I'm the designer, for example, or I'm the designer, or sorry, or I'm the project owner, you're the designer. In planning or planning activities, it's easy to think that the government or the authorities are the owners of the project. However, it is not the case. In planning, the citizens or the inhabitants of a city, the citizens of a city or a village, they're the owners, they're the project owners. Um, the authorities or the government representatives, the government only acts on their behalf, only acts on the behalf of the people. So the government acts according to the people's or the citizens' best interest. In design, when we talk about people in charge of the activity, well, the design charge until the final design is fully operational. So a designer's job is not only to draw up the plans and designs, but he's also in charge until that plan or that design is materialized. So throughout the process, until the design is finished and the building is fully operational. Um, the planner, on the other hand, is in charge until the planning documents are published, or they can, or their involvement can be extended until the planning documents that they produce or that they compile um, is then formalized in the form of regulations. Um, Speaking of documents, the final document, a designer compiles a design document with clear and fine details of what to do. If we talk about an architectural project, it will list the building materials. It will list specifications of door specifications, plumbing specifications, and whatnot, and all other utilities and installations. Plans. When we talk about spatial plans, we're not talking about just one document, but we're generally talking about multiple documents. There is a more general spatial plan, and then in the hierarchy below it there are more finer, more detailed spatial plans, until it comes down to the much finer scale of of an urban corridor, for example, or a length of or a certain area, and that is known as the building regulations, that details how a building, or the parameters of a building within a given plot of land. So dealing with multiple documents, usually our involvement in these various documents, we would be involved. Ideally, we should be involved in all levels of planning, but most of the times, our involvement is usually just at certain scales. So, for example, um, I have I have done mostly, or I've been involved in mostly infrastructure planning and yeah, infrastructure planning at a regional scale. So I haven't done anything. I haven't done much in the lower detail or in the finer detailed levels, nor have I done anything in a more general approach. The nature of the activity itself, or the nature of the document itself, the characteristic of the document itself. A design document is valid until the project is complete, until project completion, so until the design is fully operational. Once the design is fully operational, the house is fully operational, the building is fully operational, then the design document is no longer valid. However, you keep the design document as a reference should you need to carry out maintenance and whatnot. Spatial plans, however, they serve as guidelines for urban and regional growth and development. So they are valid for a much longer period of time, usually, usually 5 years. And what happens after these? What happens after 5 years? They may need revisions. But what happens if within these 5 years there is something happened that adversely impacts the plans or the guidelines? Well, we may need to revise it right there and then. So usually they're valid for 5 years, but if anything happens in between, then of course special steps or special steps need to be taken to revise and adapt the document. So with that in mind, the orientation of a design document or a designer's mindset is short term generally, whereas a planner's vision may be much more in a much longer term. And here's where I get things confused because we're surrounded by this tangible or by this material environment. So it's easy to it's and it's very easy to it's very easy to visualize. It's very easy to experience, and that's what design usually deals with. Design usually deals with tangible aspects that influence the non-tangible aspects. So a designer would think, I'll design this space, I'll design this house, this building, this gallery, and our behavior when we enter and when we interact with the building or with the structure is governed by how that design is governed by how that building is designed. On the other hand, planning deals with more non-tangible aspects, human activities, economic activities, and so on. And these non-tangible aspects influence the tangible aspects. So a planner reacts to, oh, people tend to do this, humans tend to do that, and so we should make plans accordingly. We should plan our spaces according to their activities because that's what they're doing now, and that's what they'll probably be doing in the next couple of years, and so on. So I'm gonna let's have a little fun over the next couple of slides. So, allow me to pick on your brains a little bit. Planning versus rocket science, or planning versus space travel. Let's ponder over the question: is planning more complex than space travel? Um, if you look at your screen, you can respond to this poll at pollev.com slash da 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 is and try to answer this question: is do you think planning is more complex than space travel or vice versa? I'm going to give you a couple of I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to engage in that activity while I check on something. All right, total results to okay. Let's see how we're doing. Ah, okay, almost evenly matched. Most of you think that planning is that sorry that space travel is more complex than planning. Um, do we have everybody? Do we have everybody? Oh, more and more are thinking that space travel is indeed more complex than planning. Do we have everybody? Hang on, let me go back to. So 7 of you have responded. Um, what do you boys think? Right? So I even had my children join in at the survey, and they think that space travel is more complex than planning. Do we have everybody? 9 people so far. Um, just give you a couple more minutes to complete that and to ponder whether it is indeed more complex than space travel. Mm-hmm. Planning more complex than space travel, rubbish. That's what you're all saying, right? That's absurd. Of course, space travel is more complex than planning. Rocket scientists get paid more than planners, I think. More people are choosing the idea that space travel is more complex than planning. Okay. Right, just let me check again. 11. That's fine. I think we have most of you already. Out of 11 out of 14 is good. So let me lock that. Let me lock that response. That poll. Right. So 82% of you say that space travel is more complex than planning. Um, Only 18 of you agree with the idea that planning is more complex than space travel. Let's discuss that a little bit more. What could be more complex than space travel? You're probably thinking that. That's that was a really unnecessary question. Space travel or any commercial aviation presents many technical problems. But there are two features or two things that make rocket science or space travel. Sorry, I'm not going to say rocket science. That makes space travel um, a simple thing. Space travel is a simple thing. First, the objectives of space travel is very clear. Is clearly understood. You build a rocket, you send it, and you pray that it returns. Um, Second, the processes that are involved in space travel, they follow the laws of physics. All of the processes involved are nearly physical. They're subject to the laws of physics, and the laws of physics are much better understood. And the processes involved also appear to be more regular in their application. They're more regular than the laws of human behavior. Human behavior is unpredictable. So, therefore, if you look at the objectives and you look at the processes, spatial planning is actually much more complex than space travel. It's a lot more difficult. Um, First, the basic objective is not well understood. There's clearly more than one objective, perhaps dozens of objectives that a planner or a team of planners must deal with. They have to deal with economic growth. They have to deal with fair distribution of income. They have to deal with social cohesion and social stability. They have to deal with reduction of psychological stress. And on top of that, they have to present this beautiful environment. So the list can go on, and the list can seem endless. You can add to that, other than economic growth, you can add whatever. Um, and these objectives may not be readily compatible, and some of those objectives may be contradictory. Economic growth and beautiful environment may be contradictory. You might need to provide factories and industrial estates which are brownfields and ugly. You can't, yeah, you can't. No matter how much cosmetics you put on it, an industrial estate is an industrial estate. In my opinion, it's a horrible space, um, but it is necessary for economic growth. Second, most of the processes that need controlling, are human processes, and human processes are much less well understood, and they work with much less certainty than laws in the physical sciences. I'm sure you've all been through high school, and you all know the formula for force. Force equals mass multiplied by acceleration. F equals m times a. That is a given. Whether you're doing space travel, whether you're doing commercial aviation, F equals M times A. However, and 1 plus 1 equals 2. However, when you're dealing with economics, sociology, psychology, or human geography, 1 plus 1 may not necessarily equal 2. 1 plus 1 can equal 3. 1 plus 1 can equal 4. 1 plus 1 can equal window, and whatnot. So just as in these sciences, we have to work with laws. So what is then what is human processes is the laws of statistical tendencies. That is why I think if not this semester or next semester or maybe next year, you you will you will study planning statistics, because that because I'm going to argue that planning statistics is the only is the only measurable thing about planning. All the others are all the others are dealing with human processes, and humans are unpredictable. So that's the closest spatial statistical statistical tendencies. The laws of statistical tendencies is the closest thing you will get to physical laws, or to the exactness of physical laws. So if you have a friend that tells you that spatial planning is easier than rocket science, stop being friends with them. You don't need that negativity in your life. So, yeah, that's that. We talked about spatial planning and stuff. So, what is it exactly that we plan? We plan spaces, but spaces itself, itself, according to our laws and regulations, um, is divided into at least two large or two general categories: the protected area, kawasan lindung, and the production area. Or the protected area, I think, speaks for itself. Um, the idea of having this protected area is um, to ensure natural processes still continue. Natural processes are not disrupted by our developmental activities. The cultivation area, or kawasan budidaya, they are areas um, that have been determined to you can develop them, that you can develop. These are developable. Is that a word? Developable? I don't know. These are areas that you can develop, that you can develop, that you can dig up and build, um, to support um, any. Oh goodness me, sorry. Just sorry about that. Another technical glitch. Where was I? Cultivation. Well, protected areas, cultivation areas, or developable or developmental areas. We'll have a look into that in the coming weeks. Anyways, I lost my train of thought there. Now, spatial planning is conducted to produce two types of plans. I may have hinted that there is a general and a more detailed documents in the hierarchy of planning. Now, spatial planning is conducted to produce or to establish a general spatial plan and a more detailed spatial plans. General spatial plans are structured based on administrative regions approach. And the contents of that include spatial structure plans and spatial pattern plans. Detailed spatial plans are structured on the strategic value of the region and or the regional activities with contents that can include up to the allocation of blocks and sub blocks. So with a more general spatial plan, it usually discusses the a broader scope, the broader vision, the broader vision of a broader vision of development, a broader vision of planning. The more detailed spatial plans uh, generally tries to operationalize that. The more general plan. I'm gonna try and speed things up a little bit because it's getting quite noisy in the background. Um, so a sample of the detailed spatial plan would be zoning regulations. Um, Zoning regulations are provisions or regulations that regulate space utilization. Zoning regulations also act as control regulations or control mechanisms, and they're usually prepared for each block, and the allocation of the zones is usually set in the detailed spatial plan within a city or a regency, and these zoning regulations complement the detailed plans, and it becomes one of the basis for controlling space utilization. Um, we'll explore more of that further. If you want to have a look, however, at if you want to have a look at what a detailed spatial plan or zoning regulation or zoning plan looks like, you can head over to the link that I provided on the slide. Um, There in this site, you can access several detailed plans for various cities and regency across Indonesia. Mind you, the interactive maps are still incomplete. Several places are still missing. Even Surabaya is not on the database as for now. But yeah, but anyways, head over to gistaru.atrbpn.go.id and have a look around. Maybe you can find your hometown in there. Um, but the interactive maps provide you with an overview of the several different land uses within a given administrative area. Um, this is a detailed spatial plan for Kedek in Mojokerto, and the colors are, mind you that the colors are standardized. So yellow is for urban settlements. The very light yellow is for high density settlements, and the darker yellows are for medium density settlements. I think there are also color codes for waterfront areas like of the riverfront area, and it also has it also has other functions or other types of land. It also details different facilities, and it gives you an overview of where they're situated. Health facilities, sports facilities. I just noticed there's not that many sports facilities there, are there? Educational and even worship. Right, so head on over there and have a look around. Right, so now we come into the topic of weekly assignments. Um, so we will from week three, through to week 7. Um, we will have group presentations followed by class discussions. So what each group should do is to research and review concepts, issues or problems, um, procedures and strategies. Um, Now, the idea of having weekly group presentations is to help you develop information finding and retrieval skills. Information finding and information retrieval skills is an essential skill throughout your academic career. You might think that oh, that's just as simple as doing a Google search. It is. However, um, it is a lot different. It is a lot different when you have to conduct a keyword search using Boolean commands such as and, or, and and the like. So it should help you. It helps you with that information skills. It helps develop systematic thinking. You may end up with thousands and thousands of resources that you need to compile, and compiling these resources are not as easy as it looks. So it helps with systematic thinking, and the discussion sessions will help promote discussion skills, arguing and build arguments and such, and help you develop overall communication skills. Um, Prior to group presentation sessions, you should consult with course coordinators. For weeks 3 to week 7, you should consult with me. Um, but before you consult, but before you come up to me and consult with your group, uh, create a draft of your presentation first, and then email that draft to me. Um, I should warn. I would caution against using WhatsApp to send files. Why? Because WhatsApp messages tend to get buried because of the I don't know how many tens of thousands of groups that I have in that cursed application. So send it over to me through my email. And I forgot to mention that when you send me a draft, in the heading or in the subject section of your email, don't forget to add these words in brackets, assistancy, or don't forget to add those in the subject. Otherwise, my inbox is also as cluttered as my WhatsApp application. Um, if you add those brackets, Outlook will sort the email for me, and it will prevent your draft from being buried under uh, under other types of messages. So a complete terms of reference is available in my ITS classroom. I've also sent you the terms of reference. I think I made slight adjustments, slight amendments to the terms of reference after sending it over to you. So I'm gonna double check to see that I've sent the correct terms of reference to everyone, and upload the necessary files as well accordingly. To help you with your weekly assignments, I have also uploaded um, some supplementary references. Um, I've also highlighted the chapters in this slide. I've highlighted the chapters that you should read to help you kickstart your research for the weekly assignments. So the first one is a book by Gott, Diener, and Bud, Key Concepts in Urban Studies. Have a look at chapter 1 called The City. And then Hubbard's book, simply titled City. Have a look at chapter 1, Urban Theory, Modern and Postmodern. And then a book by Ronan Paddison. It's Old But Gold, Handbook of Urban Studies. There are two chapters that may be relevant to you, to whatever group that needs it. A chapter called Studying Cities by Ronan Paddison himself, and another chapter called Defining the City by William Frey and Zachary Zimmer. And then there is a book called Urban and Regional Planning, 5th edition. Not sure. I'm sure there's been updates, but this is the edition that I have currently. The chapters that may be relevant to you are the numbers are the numbers here. The numbers here don't denote the chapter number. Just have a look at the chapter title. So planning, planners, and plans, and then national regional planning from 1945 to 2010. Planning for cities and city regions from 45 to 2010, and the planning process. So those are the books and chapters that can help you with your preparations for the upcoming weekly assignments. If I do find other references that may be relevant to you, I will share with you. Hopefully I get the chance to share it with the class as well as the group, as well as the corresponding group. I have suggested in the term of reference document, I have suggested several sources, such as the National Library. However, as of yesterday, I had difficulties accessing the National Library for some reason. But anyways, registration in the National Library is free, and it gives you access to a lot of things. You can use ITS Library Repository to help you with your research, but I think you may have to use a virtual private network to access their database and repositories, and that can add a layer of complexity to some. I don't like to use VPNs for reasons I'd rather not state. Google Scholar, don't use Google, but Google Scholar is also a good resource. But some of the references or some of the resources that are available that you can find in Google Scholar may have a paywall. You can get over that paywall by accessing it through the National Library, but again, I was having difficulties with accessing and loading their full texts. So, but give it a try anyway. You can use news sources to help with illustration and case studies for your assignment. But please use reputable sources. I gave you a couple of examples of reputable sources, such as The Guardian and The Conversation. There is an Indonesian version of The Conversation, as you may probably have already known. Excellent articles there. Other than that, I also gave you a link to a textbook provider. Although ebook3000.com is a bit dodgy, um, you may access it if you have you may access it if you have more flexibility, in the sense that the copyrighted materials there are distributed. The materials there are distributed with complete disregard of the copyright terms. However, a book is a book. We all need textbooks. Um, but before you access the ebooks site, make sure you have good antivirus, and make sure you have anti tracking softwares, and the like, just to add an extra layer of security to your data. Right. But all in all, these four books you should read first before you start your research. I suggest that you read the chapters that are highlighted here before you start any of your searches, and you should consult with me at least once before you start presenting. But sir, what if I want to consult with you more than once? You're more than welcome to do so. You are encouraged to have more than one consultation sessions with me and with Guruli for the second half of the semester. So, right. Any questions or comments regarding the course contents, regarding this week's course contents and the terms of reference for the assignment? Anybody? Yes, Aditya.
Okay, hello, sir. I have a question for the assignment.
Mhm.
So, says there is we have to research and review concept, issues, procedures, and strategies. Um, in what form of in what form is it a study paper or is it research paper or or is it just simple a review, a concept review or something? Um, yeah, thank you.
Okay. Um, the assignment is simply to put together a presentation. So you present your findings in front of the class. However, in preparing for the presentation, I'm sure you may have to write notes and everything, um, and you, sorry, you end up with you end up with a sort of review notes or review paper. You don't have to submit the notes. You don't have to submit a paper. You just have to prepare a presentation. But the paper may help you in structuring your presentation. You may want to consult with me by bringing a draft paper, for example, of the things that you discovered um, throughout your research. You may send me a draft paper and say, this is what we're going to present, this is what we're going to talk about. Is it okay? And once you get the green light, you can start structuring your presentation according to that paper. That's fine, but the paper itself is not a compulsory component in this assignment. Um, I can make it compulsory if you like, but
Oh, thank you, sir.
thank you. That's fine. But yeah, uh, the slides and the presentation is all that matters for the weekly assignments. Um, the topics have already been laid out. So next week we'll talk about we'll talk specifically about regional planning or perencanaan wilayah. What is the basic what is the idea what is the basic concept behind regional planning, and what are the issues, what are the problems that regional planning and regional planners face um, in their in their attempts to plan a region. And you might want to add an example or a case study to help illustrate the concepts and the issues that you found. And I will also present my thoughts and my findings on regional planning, and see if we can meet halfway. Fourth week, urban planning concepts and issues. Fifth week, same, coastal planning. And then the sixth and 7 weeks, we'll talk more. We'll talk more about the process and the different strategies and approaches to spatial planning. Now, um, first of all, I'd like to ask if whether you are happy with this. If you're happy with this distribution. Um, if you're unhappy with this distribution, you think, no, sir, I'd prefer to talk about something else. Do let me know. You can suggest, a different order for the groups, but it's all up to you. The the group assignments here is not a is not something that you can't bargain with. It's not something that you can't negotiate with. It's there as a suggestion. So if you're happy with this group assignment, then with this group designation of themes, then okay, fine. Let's go ahead and we can go ahead and do it. But if you think that no, I'm not really into urban planning. I prefer to do the spatial planning process. So yeah, go ahead and discuss it with your peers, with the class. But as far as but so far, is everybody happy with this designation? Or
Yes, sir.
yep.
Yes, I think to be fair to everyone here,
Mm-hmm.
um, we're not going to be picky about the subjects given to us. So
Okay.
I think we'll just carry on. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. Um, I'm glad to hear that. Any other questions or concerns regarding the assignment? I did say that you submit your final slides after your group has presented, and only group representatives that need to present. So there are three. There's three in a group. Um, every, not everybody. Just one of you. Only one of you has to submit. It can be either one, because classroom is set that way. I've set classroom that way so that you don't have to. It's doesn't. So that only representatives need to. Once a representative of the group submits, then everybody is considered to have submitted. Everybody in the group is considered to have submitted. So I will provide separate folders, several separate folders for each group. Um, but yeah, that should be done that will be done at a later stage. Any more concerns? Yes.
Sir, I have another question. Um, so when are you going to be free, or when is the consultation process, sorry?
Okay. Very good question. Consultation periods is from Monday to Friday. Um, preferably within working hours. So from 7:30 until 5. But if we do consult outside of those hours, then we will arrange a meeting outside of those hours. Sometimes, sometimes I've had to provide consultations on Saturday mornings. Sometimes and oftentimes I've had to conduct consultation periods in the evenings. But as long as that is done outside of Saturday afternoon and throughout Sunday, I'm quite happy with it. Uh, there is no set period for consultation. It's just that if you happen to be in group one, then you should you should probably contact me. You should probably send me a draft sometime this week, ideally before Friday. Ideally before Friday. So that way you still have time to revise your slides on Saturday and Sunday. Um, but yeah, there is no just you, get in touch with me and make an appointment. That's the only thing I can suggest. Um, I should have said that earlier. Actually, get in touch with me. You all have my number. Get in touch with me, and we'll arrange a time to talk. But if we can't find the time to talk, um, I can provide consultation through chat, through WhatsApp. So if you have a specific question pertaining your group, then we can try to solve your issue in a private chat. But if you have a question that may be pertaining to the greater groups or to the greater group or to the class, then your message I will probably forward your message to our larger group, and we can try to discuss it there. So make an appointment, send your draft, and then we should be able to have a productive consultation session then. Anything else, Indira?
I would like to ask about the contents of the presentation, sir. Will there be any key elements to be explained in the presentation other than the concept and issues? Thank you.
The concepts and issues are the two primary contents. If you want to add to that, that's fine. Um, again, the terms of reference serve as guidelines because we are planners. We like to make guidelines. They serve as guidelines rather than set values. Um, so concepts. The concepts should provide a basic understanding. For example, what is urban planning? Why do we need urban planning? And then you can then add for the issues for the issues part, you can add of urban planning. Urban planning has problems so and so and so, and these are the solutions. And then you can provide a third section containing case studies to illustrate the concepts and to illustrate the issues. Excuse me. Sorry, very noisy. Does that answer your question, Indira?
Yes, it was very clear. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, and excuse me for the very noisy background noise. Okay, great. Anything else? Um, if you Okay. Well, if you have any if any questions pop up or arise after the class, again, may if it may be something that other people in the class may be asking, um, don't don't send me a private message. Ask in the group. But if it has something to do with your if with your own group, then you're more than welcome to send me a private message. Again, check out week two reference folder. I'll be adding to this. I'll be adding to this as we go along. I think I found a couple of articles that may be of interest, but I haven't had the chance to upload them there yet. I should do that soon. And my homework is now to uh, double check the terms of reference and to see if I've sent you the correct one. The amended version, or did I send you a previous or an earlier version? Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining me on this lovely morning. Um, I hope you had a fruitful session, and I look forward to seeing you all. I look forward to consulting with Group One soon, and I look forward to meeting you all again next week. Please mark your attendance if you haven't done so already. Thank you very much, and have a smashing day, everyone. Good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.